Watch closely, this is one of the fastest ways to separate gold dust from river dirt in the wild. First, the miners pour the sand and gravel containing tiny gold particles into this blue spinning machine. As the disc rotates and water rushes through, the heavier materials, like gold flakes and small gold nuggets, sink toward the center and drop into the collection hole below. But the real question is, how do they even find gold-rich riverbeds in the first place? Experienced prospectors usually look for areas where the current changes direction or slows down. Places where two streams meet, swirling pockets behind large rocks, or spots where heavy sediment naturally builds up are often the best locations to find gold. Next, they scoop up the sand and gravel from those areas and place it into a gold pan. By carefully shaking the pan underwater, the lighter material washes away while the heavier minerals settle at the bottom. What's left behind is usually a mixture of black sand, iron particles, and tiny pieces of gold. And this sample looks surprisingly rich. At this stage, the gold is still mixed with impurities, so the material is fed back into the machine for another round of separation. Then a magnet is used to pull out the iron sand. After that, special chemicals are added to help melt and refine the remaining gold concentrate. A blowtorch heats the material until it turns into liquid metal. Finally, the molten gold is poured into a mold and cooled with water, revealing a solid gold bar pulled straight from the riverbed. This machine can massively boost gold prospecting efficiency. But the key is knowing where to look. Areas where the water slows down, or where the current weakens, are gold-rich hotspots. Because gold is dense, it naturally sinks and gets trapped in these calmer spots. That's where you'll find the most gold settling. So you need to carefully wash and pan all the sediment from these areas. Start by removing the bigger rocks. Then move on to a slow, methodical sifting process. Bit by bit, the gold dust begins to reveal itself. So, have you learned the trick yet? Have you ever seen people using this kind of machine to pan for gold in the sand? First, when we're by a stream up in the mountains, we look for these rocks with grass growing on them. If grass is growing on a rock out of nowhere, there's usually something special about it. We start by moving the big rock aside. The hole underneath gets hit by the water flow, which washes away sand and small stones, but heavier metals, like gold, tend to stay behind. Next, we remove the larger stones on top because the metals will sink to the very bottom. A quick rinse with water helps wash off the mud clinging to the rocks. Then we bring everything into a washing pan and start scrubbing and rinsing with water. The heaviest stuff at the bottom is the gold-rich material.
Wow!
Don't forget the small rock pits under the water, they're important too. Gold is denser than most stones, so it sinks below them. Sometimes you don't even need to dig underwater, just wash away the mud by hand, and what's left is gold. Next, we use a water pumping machine to filter out extra sand and dirt. The filter tray catches the lighter debris, while the heavier gold gets trapped in the crevices. Finally, we gather all the gold we've collected today and melt it into a single piece with fire. So, which is more important, the tools you use to pan for gold, or picking the right location? Have you ever seen someone pan for gold in the sand using this kind of machine? The stone layout along this part of the river is really unique. The tiered rocks create little waterfalls from upstream, and most of the sand in the water gets washed away by the current. A lot of the metal particles get trapped in the gaps between these rocks, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of gold hidden in there. First, we move the larger rocks aside and dig out all the sand from the crevices. Even though these gaps look small, they actually hold a lot of sediment. Next, we slowly shake and filter the sand in the water to remove the larger stones on top. The fine sand falls into a lower pan, and we continue rinsing it with flowing water to wash away the remaining mud. When you find a prime gold panning spot like this, shaking it slowly by hand is very time-consuming. That's why this time we're using a new tool. This machine works using a siphon principle, sucking the sediment straight from the water. As the sediment passes through the filter tray, larger stones and coarse dirt get washed away by the water. Because metals are denser, they stay trapped in the gaps of the filter tray. After that, all you need to do is pour the sand from the tray into a gold pan for more detailed filtering. Slowly wash away the remaining dirt, and at the very bottom, you'll have the part that contains a lot of metal. Using this tool, you can filter a large amount of coarse sediment at once, saving a lot of time compared to digging and washing by hand. So, do you think this gold panning tool is really useful? You can really strike gold only with this machine. Today, I spotted a very interesting rock formation in a dried-up riverbed. The sediment around this spot is definitely hiding something valuable. Big rocks block the water flow, while smaller rocks help trap metal particles. I dug out all the sand and rocks from the gaps, and even at first glance, the sand was already sparkling. I took the dug-up sand to the river to wash it. Slowly shaking and sifting in the water removes the larger rocks on top. The fine sand collected in the pan below is then shaken and rinsed, using the flowing water to wash away extra debris. The heavier metals settle at the very bottom of the pan. Next, I gather all the gold-bearing sand and run it through a spiral gold panning machine to remove any remaining fine sand. The trickiest part of gold panning is separating other metals. This machine lets you remove magnetic metals. The gold and magnetic metals slide apart to opposite sides. This way, the gold is much purer, and when melted, its purity is higher. So, what do you think? Does this machine really make gold panning easier? Have you ever seen a tool that makes gold panning this fast? Today, we picked a spot in the gap of a large rock. This used to be the end of a river, but now it's completely dried up. That rock was often scoured by the water, and I'm sure a lot of metals are hidden in this crevice. We dig out all the sand and stones from the gap. First, we use a perforated sieve to filter out the larger rocks and collect them. After filtering several times, we pour the filtered sand into a gold pan with lots of grooves. We place the pan in flowing water, letting the current wash away much of the mud and fine sand. Because gold is dense, it settles into the grooves of the pan. If you're lucky, you'll find small gold pieces trapped there. These grooves only help improve efficiency. There's still a lot of fine sand mixed with gold in the pan. That's when patience is key. You need to manually shake and swirl the pan to separate the remaining sand and gold. For the gold mixed with fine sand, we can run it through a spiral gold panning machine to remove additional impurities. Then, we use a magnet to pull out any magnetic metals, leaving behind much purer gold. So, which gold panning tool do you think works best?